move on to the case studies aspect of the session. As I say, the case studies will cover a variety of areas within the future proofing of a future municipal utility, power utility. And let me start with Prof. Wikus van Niekerk, who's the Dean of the University of Stellenbosch. I think he's also well known to the sector. A mechanical engineer by profession, PhD from University of California. Lots of accolades in his career, and so he comes well positioned to talk on the subject that he's going to be talking about, and that's on the human resources element in this journey to being future-proofed. So without much further ado, it gives me great pleasure to hand over to Prof. Wikus. Prof. Wikus doesn't have a presentation, but he's going to talk to it. And I think he'll cover a lot more while talking. I think he's been strategic in this. So over to you, Prof. Wikus.
Right. Thank you, VALLY. So you already let the cat out of the bag. You know that one of my big challenges today is that I'm a mechanical engineer. And of course, my other big challenge is also quite evident that I'm an academic. And I'm talking here to people in municipalities and in ESCOM doing very, very hard work. So I'm trying to make some comments, but I always will acknowledge that I have those two deficiencies in my background. I also have to say that Dr. De Beer had me quite despondent here in the first half of his talk. I nearly burst out in tears, but at least we went up the hill there, and I think there is a vision ahead from his side. And I think what I'm going to say, or my main message, is going to be very similar to at least one point that he made quite a few times during his presentation. But before I talk about that, I just want to talk a little bit about what is now called data science. So a lot of times, you know, we hear the words Industry 4.0, Energy 4.0, and we all know that data is, as some people say, you know, the new oil. And it is something that is highly exploited by many companies to be very successful. I've heard the word and I use it a lot. We talk about a deluge of data. There is just so much data available in the world on, you know, our behavior, what we do on Facebook. I mean, what we buy at the shopping malls. Our financials are very rich with data. But I think your sector is also very, very data rich. If you think about, you know, all the information you can get out of the system. And as you install new technology like smart meters, it becomes even more and more prevalent that there's a huge deluge of data. What is actually important is not, the fact that there is data. The fact is, what do we do with the data? And there's a lot of work that can now be done. And there's a lot of what we call data analytics that is available. And we can really interrogate our data and get a lot of information out of our data. Unfortunately, many companies stop there. You know, they have all kind of fancy graphs that show, you know, how much electricity was used, what time of the day, which part of a city pays a higher proportion of the bills, etc., etc. But that is just information, and that is not really what we should use our data for only. We should progress to the next level, and that is what we call knowledge or discovery, or how to discover knowledge from data or knowledge discovery. And for that, we need additional skills, which is not always so prevalent in industry or especially in municipalities. It is something that I think that we should pay a lot of attention to, because not only should a company become a data-driven organization, but we should really become what is now called data-led organizations. And that means that we need to interrogate our data. We need to discover what knowledge we can from that. And then we should use that to inform our future strategy and our future investments. Now, of course, in order to do this from the data, we need skills. And there is quite a number of different levels of skills that's required in this whole value chain. And specifically in what we call data science and data engineering. So just here at Stellenbosch University to inform you of some of the aspects that we have addressed over the last few years is we have a new 4-year Bachelor's of Engineering degree fully accredited by EXA in data engineering. And we trust that those engineers will be excellent employees of the future to use your data, to model it, to let different artificial intelligence, machine learning algorithms loose on your data, and then discover that knowledge that you need in order to make informed decisions. We also have a coursework-based master's degree in data engineering, and then there's also a new bachelor's in data science at Stellenbosch University, as well as we're working on a postgraduate diploma. However, I have to also sometimes go a little bit to the other side and inform you that you will be in competition with a lot of other organizations for these skills. If you followed the news over the last year or so, you would have discovered that APSA said last year they are going to employ 250 new data scientists and data engineers. Capitec announced they were looking for 300 people. F&B were looking for also 300 people. Amazon said they're looking for 200 data specialists in South Africa. And then also we're in close contact with a very interesting operation in Tshwane, the so-called BMW ZA Hub, where BMW has 1,500 data specialists working on BMW projects all over the country. And they say before the end of the year, they want to hire an additional 200. So what you can hear from that is that there is a huge demand for these new skills, and it is something that we have to be aware of, and we have to be very careful about nurturing these people, training them up, bringing them into our organization and making use of their skills. As Dr. De Beer also alluded, in this new world of work, it could also be that we could make use of skills that is not necessarily available in South Africa, that we can hire in to help us to address with that. I also want to talk in general, make just a few comments about skills in the power sector. One of my other hats that I wear is I'm the consortium director of EPAE, which is the Eskom Power Plant Engineering Institute. And it was something that was set up 10 years ago to train engineers working for Eskom, as well as other engineers not yet working for Eskom, with masters and PhDs in the field to equip them better for the workplace. And the way we did it was through making use of Eskom specialists to act as what we call industry mentors for these students, and these students worked on actual Eskom projects in order for their studies. Therefore, not only did Eskom get a better educated engineer, they also got some research results they could have implemented. 2 years ago, we did a survey to see what happened to these Eskom staff that we trained through the EPAE program. And I was quite delighted to learn that the electrical engineers that we've trained, so specifically those in distribution and transmission, about 85% of them were still working with Eskom. And that was something which I think was a good investment by Eskom, and it was a good outcome of the program. Unfortunately, the majority of the people that we were targeting in the EPAE program worked for Generation. And in Generation, less than half of the EPAE students we graduated who were Eskom employees at the time of their studies still remained with Eskom as employees. And for me, I think that is really disconcerting. And I think this is one of the big issues. And also, if you followed the news lately over the last few days, which is really distressing, you know, how this sector has bled skills to a very, very, very large extent. And it is something that is very hard to build up. For instance, if you lose an engineer with 20 years of experience working on a power station, you do not replace that person by hiring a young graduate that is now fresh out of the university or from the University of Technology, and you expect that person to be up to the same level of competence than that well-qualified and well-experienced engineers. I think that over the past maybe 2 decades in this sector, our hiring practices had the wrong priorities. We didn't really prioritize skills, experience, and training when we hired people. We used other attributes, and they weighed much heavier in our hiring decisions than looking for the right skills with the right experience into our sector. And now, unfortunately, we are paying a price for that. So for me, and Wally, I'm gonna end up with this, is that if we are serious to enter Energy 4.0, we should carefully consider how we treat, and especially how we recruit our human resources. Human resources are key to any future-proofing that any municipality, any metro, and ESCOM wants to do. I always tell people that the most important decision I make as a manager here at Stellenbosch University is the hiring decision. It's who do I pick with my team to employ as the staff in this faculty. And I would really encourage you to think very carefully about that. One of your most important decisions is who do you appoint in these positions that you have available? Because good people and excellent people and brilliant people will help you to future-proof your industry going forward. And Vali, with that, I'm giving it back to you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Wikus. I think your comments, short, sweet, and succinct. You made some critical points of note there. One of the aspects I take off is you mentioned or alluded to the words I'm describing. We've made incorrect decisions in employing some of the skills. I would add passion, attitude, etc. to that. But I think maybe if we've got time, I'm going to ask you this question later on in the panel, is 2 points. Coming from academia, we need to be cognizant that we're not training and developing skills and competencies. If you look at a 10-year window, that may not be needed in this fast expanding thing. And then what, as a crystal ball, informed or educated crystal ball, what should be some of those competencies at that stage of the journey? So just think about that, Prof, and I'll get back to you.